You know, I never thought I'd be the kind of man telling this story. I always believed betrayal happened to other people, not to someone like me. I worked hard, paid my bills, stayed faithful. I wasn't perfect, but I loved my wife with everything in me. Her name is Sarah. For 5 years, she was my world, my laughter, my calm, my reason to come home early every day. We lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood, the kind of place where everyone knew each other's names. Kids rode bikes in the streets. People waved when you drove by. It was peaceful, safe, or at least, I thought it was. Our next-door neighbor, David, was the kind of guy everyone liked. He'd been living there before we moved in. Mid-30s, charming, divorced, always offering to help with something. If I was fixing my car, he'd walk over with a wrench. If we had a cookout, he'd bring beer. I trusted him. Hell, I liked him. He was that neighbor you call, bro, the one who watches your house when you're away. The one you never imagined would walk through your front door for the wrong reasons. But the night everything changed, it wasn't loud. It wasn't obvious. It was quiet, almost too quiet. It was a Thursday night. Around 11:30 p.m., I was half asleep on the couch when I heard her voice coming from the kitchen. Soft, nervous. She was whispering. At first, I didn't think much of it. Maybe she was talking to her sister or her mom. But then I heard something that made me freeze. She said my name, and she laughed. It wasn't the kind of laugh you give your family. It was the kind that comes from somewhere deeper, softer. I sat up slowly, trying to make out the words. Her back was turned, and her voice was low, but I caught phrases, "He doesn't even notice anymore," and "You make me feel alive." My heart started pounding. I stepped forward, quietly enough not to startle her. The kitchen light hit her face, and she jumped when she saw me standing there. "Oh, baby, you scared me," she said, clutching the phone like it was gold. "Who were you talking to?" I asked. She smiled too quickly. "My cousin Mia. You know, from Atlanta. We were just catching up." But her hand was shaking. Her eyes wouldn't stay still. Something about that moment didn't sit right with me. I nodded like I believed her, kissed her forehead, and went back to the living room. But inside, I was falling apart. That night, when she fell asleep beside me, I lay awake listening to her breathing. I kept replaying her words in my head. "He doesn't even notice anymore." Was she talking about me? I reached for her phone on the nightstand. I shouldn't have, but I did. My hands were shaking as I opened her call log. There it was. A recent number, no name saved. Called twice. I copied it into my own phone, my chest tight with something between fear and anger. I didn't sleep. I just stared at the ceiling until morning. When she left for work, she kissed me like nothing was wrong, like the night before never happened. I sat in my car for a long time, staring at the number on my screen. Should I call it? Should I pretend nothing happened? Part of me hoped it was nothing. Maybe it really was her cousin. Maybe I was just paranoid. But then, something in my gut said, no, call it. So I did. The phone rang twice. Then a man's voice answered. "Hello." I swear, my blood went cold. It was David, our neighbor. For a moment, I couldn't speak. My throat tightened. My chest felt like it was collapsing. "Hello," he said again. "Who's this?" I ended the call immediately. I stared at the phone in disbelief, my palms sweating, my heart racing so hard I could hear it. No, this can't be. Maybe it's a coincidence. Maybe she called him for something innocent. Maybe. But deep down, I already knew. I just didn't want to believe it. That day, I couldn't eat, couldn't work, couldn't think straight. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped. Every smile from her replayed in my head like a scene from a movie I no longer understood. How long had it been going on? What did they talk about? Had it gone that far? I started watching her differently. The way she checked her phone and smiled when she thought I wasn't looking. The way she suddenly cared more about how she looked when she went to the store. And then there was David. Always waving. Always friendly. That weekend, he came over like he always did. He had that same easy grin, the kind that used to seem harmless. "Hey man," he said. "How's work?" I stared at him for a few seconds too long before answering. "Busy," I said. "You know how it is." He nodded, sipping from his can of beer, acting like everything was normal. But I couldn't unhear his voice from that call. He was right there, in my backyard, laughing with me, and sleeping with my wife behind my back. That night, I went to bed beside her again. But this time, I felt nothing. No love. No peace. Just emptiness. When she turned to cuddle, I pretended to be asleep. Her arm wrapped around me, and for a second, I almost forgot. But then I remembered his voice, her smile, their secret, and I felt sick. The next few days, I went through the motions. Work, home, dinner, repeat. But inside, I was planning something. I needed to know the truth, not from her lips, but from proof. Because liars can fake tears. But cameras don't lie. I went online, bought a few hidden cameras, the kind you can hide inside a clock, a photo frame, a smoke detector. I set them up when she went shopping one Saturday. Living room, hallway, even the kitchen. I told myself it was paranoia, that I was doing too much, that maybe she really was just talking to her cousin. But my gut whispered otherwise. A week later, I got home early from work. She wasn't expecting me. Her car was in the driveway, but the house was quiet. I opened the door slowly and froze. There were two coffee mugs on the table. One had lipstick on it. The other didn't. My stomach dropped. From the hallway, I heard movement. Soft laughter, a man's voice, low and familiar. I didn't move, didn't breathe. I walked toward the sound, and then I saw it through the living room reflection. David, sitting on my couch, leaning close to her. She was smiling, touching his hand. My hands clenched so hard I could feel my nails digging into my palms. I didn't storm in. Not yet. I turned around quietly and walked out the front door. Because I didn't just want to see it. I wanted it recorded. That night, after she went to bed, I checked the footage. And what I saw confirmed everything I feared. David had been sneaking into my home when I was gone. He knew my schedule. He knew when I'd be at work. He would park 2 houses down, walk through the backyard, and enter through the side door. I watched my own wife laugh, hug him, pour him coffee, like it was their home. Every smile, every whisper, every look broke me piece by piece. I wanted to throw up. I wanted to scream. But I just sat there, staring at the screen until the sun came up. Because now I knew. I had proof. And I was no longer the husband she thought she could lie to. I played the footage again, my hands trembling, realizing my marriage and the man I used to be might not survive what I just saw. I must have replayed that footage 100 times. Every time I watched it, I hoped I'd see something different, maybe a sign that I misunderstood what was happening. But the truth never changed. It was my wife, and it was David. The same David who helped me build the fence in our backyard last summer. The man who borrowed my lawnmower, who'd sit on my porch drinking beer, telling me stories about his ex-wife and how all women leave eventually. Back then, I just laughed and said, "Not mine, man. Sarah's different." What a fool I was. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed while she slept beside me. The same woman I'd once dreamed of growing old with. The same woman who now smelled faintly of another man's cologne. I looked at her and wondered, what changed? Was it me? Did I stop loving her right? Did I stop seeing her? But then I remembered the laughter on the video, how happy she looked when I wasn't home, and something inside me hardened. No, this wasn't my fault. The next morning, she woke up and smiled like everything was normal. "Morning, baby," she said softly, kissing my cheek. I looked into her eyes and almost forgot everything. Almost. But then she picked up her phone, turned her back, and started typing fast. That phone had become her lifeline, and I knew exactly who was on the other end. I wanted to grab it, to smash it against the wall, to scream, "Who are you texting, Sarah?" But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I played dumb. I kissed her forehead, grabbed my keys, and left for work early. In my car, I just sat there for a long time, staring at the steering wheel. Every memory of our life together replayed in slow motion. Our wedding day, the vows, the first apartment, the night we couldn't afford dinner and shared a single slice of pizza while laughing. How do you go from that kind of love to this kind of betrayal? I didn't have the answer, but I knew I needed more proof. The footage I had was enough to break my heart, but not enough to break her lies. If I confronted her now, she'd twist it, deny it, gaslight me until I questioned my own sanity. So I decided to wait, to watch, to let the truth expose itself. Over the next few days, I became a stranger in my own house. I spoke less. I watched more. Sarah started staying out longer, saying she was running errands or meeting clients. She didn't notice that I'd stopped asking questions. She didn't realize that every move she made was being recorded. Every smile she gave him. Every moment they thought was private. I had it all. There was one clip that almost destroyed me. She was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, when David walked in. He leaned down, kissed her on the forehead, and she smiled. Then she whispered, "He still doesn't know." I paused the video right there. My vision blurred. I couldn't breathe. Those 4 words, "He still doesn't know," they cut deeper than anything else. I wanted to drive to David's house that very second, drag him outside, and make him feel everything I felt. But rage without control is suicide, and I wasn't going to let them ruin me like that. That night, I went to my best friend's garage. The only place I could think straight. I didn't tell him everything, just enough for him to know something was wrong. He poured me a beer and said, "Man, if you suspect something, don't just confront her with words. Bring evidence. People lie, but proof doesn't." He was right. I already had proof, but not the moment, not the confrontation. So I waited for it. 3 nights later, it came. It was raining hard, one of those long, cold American nights where the streets are empty and every sound echoes. I got home early, parked down the street, and watched my own house from the car. At exactly 7:43 p.m., David's car pulled up. He looked around, hood up, and hurried toward my backyard gate. I recorded it on my phone, just for backup. Then I sat there, in silence, watching my world collapse in real time. I waited 15 minutes, long enough to make sure they were comfortable. Then I walked inside. The house was quiet except for the faint sound of music, Sarah's favorite playlist. I stepped into the living room, and there they were. She was standing by the window, and he was right behind her, whispering something in her ear. When I entered, they both froze. David stumbled back, pretending to fix his jacket. Sarah blinked fast, her face pale. "What's going on here?" I asked, my voice too calm. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Then David said, "Hey man, I was just helping Sarah." She thought she saw something in her eye, so I laughed. That ugly, hollow kind of laugh that comes from disbelief. "Really?" I said slowly. "You were helping her with her eye?" Sarah jumped in. Yes. Yes. I got something stuck, and he came over to check." She sounded desperate, her hands trembling. I took a deep breath, walked to the TV stand, and grabbed the small remote that connected to my hidden cameras. "Then let's see how many times you've helped her with her eyes," I said quietly. I turned on the TV. The footage started playing. The room went silent. On screen, there was my living room, the same one we were standing in, and there was Sarah, laughing with David, sitting too close, whispering. Every second was a knife to my chest. David looked at the screen, then at me. His face drained of color. Sarah covered her mouth, tears welling up instantly. "Please, it's not what it looks like." I cut her off. Don't you dare say that line to me." She tried to reach for me, but I stepped back. "You brought him into our home," I said. "Into the house we built together." Tears ran down her cheeks. "It was a mistake." I shouted so loud she flinched. "A mistake doesn't happen over and over again, Sarah. A mistake doesn't know my work schedule. A mistake doesn't look me in the eye every night and lie." She dropped to her knees, sobbing. David muttered something about being sorry, about not meaning for this to happen. I stared at him, really stared, and for a second, I wanted to end him right there. But I didn't. Because no amount of violence could erase the image burned into my mind. I turned off the TV, grabbed my car keys, and headed for the door. Sarah crawled after me, grabbing my arm. "Please, don't leave. I'll do anything." I looked down at her. "My wife. My betrayer." "You already did," I said quietly. Then I walked out into the rain, the sound of her crying echoing behind me. I drove aimlessly for hours, the wipers moving back and forth like a heartbeat I couldn't calm. At one point, I pulled over near an empty park and just sat there. I thought about the life we built, the dreams we shared, the promises we made. And I realized something. Sometimes the people you die for are the same people slowly killing you. I didn't know it then, but the footage I recorded would soon go viral, and what happened next would destroy not just my marriage, but every illusion I ever had about love. That night didn't end when I left the house. It just kept replaying, like a movie I couldn't switch off. Every time I blinked, I saw her face. The tears. The shaking hands. The moment she realized I knew everything. I parked my car near an empty gas station, rain still pouring so hard the world outside looked blurred. For hours, I just sat there, phone in one hand, the footage still saved on my screen. I kept asking myself, how did we get here? What happened to the woman who once couldn't sleep unless her head was on my chest? What happened to the marriage we both swore we'd protect? People say betrayal feels like heartbreak. No, it's worse. It feels like your soul is bleeding from the inside, while the world keeps spinning like nothing happened. When the rain finally stopped, I drove to a cheap motel on the edge of town. I didn't want to go to a friend's place. I didn't want questions, or pity, or advice. I just wanted silence. The room smelled like cigarette smoke and loneliness. I sat on the bed, scrolling through the footage again, this time frame by frame. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about understanding how far it went. Every touch, every whisper, every stolen second. And then I noticed something I hadn't before. In one of the clips, Sarah was wearing my hoodie. She was curled up next to David, laughing. And he said, "He's too good to you, you know that? He'd never suspect a thing." She smiled and replied, "That's what makes it easy." I dropped the phone. That one sentence, that single moment of cruelty disguised as casual conversation. It shattered whatever pieces of love were still holding me together. She didn't just cheat. She mocked my faith in her. She used my trust as her cover. I didn't go home that night. Or the next. She called, over and over. 32 missed calls. 19 messages. Each one sounded more desperate than the last. "Please, baby, come home. It was a mistake, I swear. We can fix this. I'll do anything. But you can't fix something that's been smashed to dust." When you betray love, you don't just break a heart. You erase the future that was built around it. On the third morning, I finally texted her. "We need to talk." Her reply came instantly. "Please, yes. I'll do anything. I love you." That word, love, stung like a lie told too late. Still, I went home. Not because I forgave her, but because I needed to look her in the eyes one last time and let her feel what she'd done. When I opened the front door, the house felt different. Quiet. Heavy. Like even the walls knew what happened. She came running from the kitchen, eyes red, hair messy. "Thank God," she sobbed, reaching for me. "I thought you'd never come back." I stepped back. "Don't touch me," I said coldly. Her hands froze midair. The silence between us was suffocating. Finally, I said, "Why?" She blinked. "What? Why him, Sarah? Out of everyone, why our neighbor? Why someone who stood in this house and called me brother?" Her lips trembled. "I don't know. It just happened. It just happened." I repeated, laughing bitterly. "Cheating doesn't just happen, Sarah. You don't just trip and fall into someone's bed." She broke down crying. "I was lonely, okay? You were always working. Always tired. I felt like you didn't see me anymore." I clenched my fists. "So instead of talking to me, you went to him?" She covered her face and whispered, "He made me feel wanted again." Her words echoed in my head, sharp and cruel. I wanted to scream, to destroy something, but all that came out was a whisper. "I gave you everything I had, and you gave it to him." She begged me to sit down, to talk it out. But all I could think about was how easily she lied to me that night. The phone call, the fake smile, the cousin in Atlanta story. I looked at her and said, "You know what hurts the most? You didn't just betray me. You made me believe I was crazy. You made me doubt my own instincts." Her tears fell harder. "I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't erase the nights he snuck in here," I said. "It doesn't erase what I saw on that footage." She froze. "You kept the videos?" "Yes," I said. "Every second." Her face went pale. "What are you going to do with them?" I looked her dead in the eyes. "Nothing. I don't need revenge. I already have the truth, and that's enough." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Just the sound of her sobbing filled the room. Then, softly, she whispered, "Do you still love me?" That question hit me like a punch. That question hit me like a punch. I didn't answer right away. I walked to the window, looking out at David's house. The lights still on, his car parked like nothing had happened. "Finally," I said, "I love the woman I thought you were. But she doesn't exist anymore." Her body went limp, and she fell to her knees again, crying into her hands. And me? I just stood there, hollow, staring out at the world that looked the same but wasn't. A few days later, I packed my things. She tried to stop me, said she'd go to therapy, said she'd change, said she'd end things with him. But when trust dies, love suffocates. You can't rebuild something on ashes. I left the house with one suitcase, my phone, and the camera footage that had burned itself into my mind. As I closed the door behind me, she called out, "Please, can't we start over?" I turned to her one last time and said, "Start over with who, Sarah?" "Because the man who used to love you, he's gone." I moved into a small apartment on the other side of town. It wasn't much, just a couch, a bed, and silence. But it was mine. It was peace. For weeks, I didn't answer her calls, didn't respond to her emails. But one night, curiosity got the best of me. I checked her social media. She deleted everything about me. No wedding photos. No happy memories. Just empty quotes about forgiveness and pain. And then, one day, she posted a picture of herself, smiling again. And standing next to her was David. That was the final nail in the coffin. Funny thing about betrayal, it doesn't just destroy love. It changes how you see the world. Every laugh sounds fake. Every "I love you" feels rehearsed. But it also teaches you something. It teaches you that peace is more valuable than passion. That sometimes walking away isn't weakness, it's survival. I didn't confront David again. I didn't ruin their lives. Because the truth is, karma doesn't need witnesses. And sooner or later, they'll turn on each other. The same way they turned on me. That's when I stopped being the broken husband and started being the man who learned to see clearly. Because love blinded me once. But betrayal taught me how to see. But just when I thought it was over, I got a message that made my blood run cold. And it came from David's phone. When I said I was done, I thought that meant the story was over. But sometimes, life has a strange way of writing its own ending. One you never planned, one you never asked for, but needed. It started 2 weeks after I moved out. I was finally starting to breathe again. The silence didn't hurt as much. I'd stopped checking her social media. I'd stopped replaying the footage in my head. Then one afternoon, while I was at work, my phone buzzed with a message that froze me. Unknown number. You need to see this. Attached was a short video. I opened it. And there it was. My footage. The same hidden camera video I'd recorded of Sarah and David in my house. Only this time, it had been edited. Titled, "When Your Neighbor Trusts the Wrong People." It already had thousands of views. My heart started racing. My palms went cold. I didn't share that footage. I hadn't told anyone but my best friend that it even existed. So how did it get out? I called my friend, but it wasn't him. He swore on his life he hadn't touched anything. Then I realized something. Before I left, I'd backed up all the files to my home computer. Sarah must have found them. Maybe she tried to delete them. Maybe she accidentally synced something to the cloud. But however it happened, it was out there now. And the internet? The internet doesn't forgive. Within 24 hours, everyone in the neighborhood had seen it. The video spread like wildfire. Neighbors whispering, friends texting me in disbelief, people taking screenshots, sharing it in private groups. The comments were brutal. How could she do that to him? That's their neighbor, unreal. Man, he's too calm. I'd lose it. By the next day, even David's job found out. He worked at a local dealership, small town, big gossip. They suspended him indefinitely. Sarah? She became a ghost. She stopped showing up to work, deleted all her accounts, and locked herself inside that house. I didn't plan for any of it. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel powerless. The truth had done what I couldn't. A week later, I went back to the neighborhood to grab the last of my things. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw David's house. Dark, windows shut, mailbox overflowing. And then I saw her. Sarah was sitting on the porch steps. She looked nothing like the woman I used to know. Her hair was messy, eyes red, makeup smudged. When she saw me, she stood up, voice trembling. "Please, can we talk?" I almost kept walking, but something in her tone stopped me. I turned slowly. "Talk about what?" She stepped closer. "I didn't leak the video. I swear to God, I didn't. Someone else must have found it." I sighed. "Sarah, it doesn't matter anymore." "It does," she cried. "Everyone's talking about me. My job fired me. I can't even go to the grocery store without people whispering. My life is ruined." Her words hit the air like thunder, but I just stood there. She looked at me, desperate. "Aren't you angry it's out there? They're all watching us, judging us. That's our life. Our life." I repeated slowly. "No, Sarah. That was my life, until you destroyed it." Her face crumpled. "I made a mistake." I cut her off. "A mistake? You turned our marriage into an episode of reality TV before the cameras ever rolled. She fell silent, her sobs echoing through the empty street. And then, something strange happened. David came out of his house. He looked defeated. The confident, smirking neighbor was gone. His eyes were hollow, and he could barely look at me. He walked over, hands in his pockets. "Hey man," he said softly. I didn't answer. "I'm sorry," he said. "I know that doesn't mean much, but I am. I lost everything too. My job, my friends, my peace." I looked at him, the man who used to eat at my table, drink my beer, laugh with my wife. And for the first time, I didn't feel rage. I just felt empty. "Good," I said quietly. "Now you know what that feels like." He nodded slowly, tears in his eyes, and walked back inside. That night, I sat alone in the same driveway I once called home. And for the first time in months, I felt closure. Not because they were humiliated, not because the world saw what they did, but because the truth, pure and undeniable, was finally out. I didn't have to prove anything anymore. The world did it for me. Days turned into weeks. The gossip died down. The video eventually got taken down, but the damage was already done. Sarah sold the house and moved out of state. David disappeared from the neighborhood entirely. And me? I started rebuilding. I went back to the gym, started traveling a little, met new people, slowly, carefully. But I made one promise to myself. I'd never let love blind me again. One evening, months later, I got another message from an unknown number. It was a link, a new video. My heart jumped, thinking it was the footage again. But it wasn't. It was Sarah, sitting in front of a camera, eyes swollen, voice shaking. "If you're watching this," she said, "I just want to say I'm sorry. To the man I hurt. To the one who trusted me. I lost everything because I took his love for granted. And if I could take it all back, I would. But I can't. So this is my confession." I watched in silence, not out of pity, but out of closure. She wasn't the villain anymore. Just a broken person who made choices that shattered more than hearts. They shattered lives. I didn't share the video. I didn't comment or reach out. I just turned off my phone and sat in silence for a long time. Because finally, it was over. Love had turned to betrayal. Betrayal had turned to exposure. And exposure brought me peace. Sometimes, revenge doesn't come from anger. It comes from the truth speaking for itself. And when it does, you don't need to raise your voice. You just let the world see what you saw. Fade out, slow cinematic music plays. Final monologue for YouTube narration. I used to believe love could fix anything. Now I know, love can also blind you to everything. But when the truth finally comes to light, you don't need to fight. You just walk away and let the truth do what you never could.